The NCAA is absolutely praying that Ole Miss loses to North Carolina in the NCAA Tournament Friday.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Locked On Ole Miss podcast is the most watched Ole Miss podcast, bringing you Rebels coverage every single day. I'm Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the National Member and a former video coordinator on Ole Miss's staff. I'm here to break it all down. Today, we are joined by Isaac Shade from Locked On Tar Heels to talk about what could be an absolutely explosive March Madness matchup. Ole Miss versus North Carolina, two teams no one is given a chance, but the NCAA is practically begging for the Tar Heels to win after all the backlash after their inclusion. Meanwhile, a CBS analyst has called Ole Miss the fraud of the tournament. That sets up the Rebels in a rare underdog 6-seed spot with everything to prove and nothing to lose. Buckle up. This could be an all-time game. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day. And a special shout out to our insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is. And don't forget to check out a second listen. Chris Gordy on Locked On SEC and Corey Burton on Locked On Vandy. They offer more SEC, college basketball, and heck, even Ole Miss insights as well. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Listen, the NCAA is absolutely begging for North Carolina to beat Ole Miss. They're praying for it. They need it. Their decision to include the North Carolina Tar Heels into the NCAA tournament put them in this position to where they need North Carolina, an 11 seed, a warranted 11 seed, with exactly one win against quad one opponents to make a run, and it starts with Ole Miss. And the reason you know that is some of the people, the sycophants, the people that just carry the water for the NCAA, people are starting to pile on. And Ole Miss now is a trendy first-round exit pick. And Ole Miss is now the fraud of the entire tournament, according to a CBS analyst. The NCAA needs, wants, whatever you want to say, however you want to prove it. It doesn't matter that North Carolina is a blue blood. They need a win to justify their inclusion into the dance. And with everybody now jumping on the Ole Miss fraud bandwagon and UNC not deserving to be in the tournament, you can see how this is all shaking up. Whenever they play in Milwaukee on Friday, it will be absolutely massive for Ole Miss basketball, but it's going to be more massive for the NCAA selection committee who chose to do this. They brought the potential litigation from the state of West Virginia into the fold with putting North Carolina into the tournament. They looked fantastic Tuesday night, but the NCAA is doing everything they can to ensure that North Carolina has the best possible situation to make a run, including playing in a play-in game on Tuesday night and not playing in the NCAA tournament until Friday. That's not usually how they do it. It's a Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Friday game. And for this year, for whatever reason, North Carolina even got an extra day of rest. So we'll see exactly how it goes. Anyway, we're going to go into Thunderdome for the first time this college basketball season. Isaac Shade from North Carolina. Isaac Shade from Locked On Tar Heels joins us. And Isaac, I just got to say this, the NCAA is begging that North Carolina wins this game against Ole Miss. After all of the controversy, West Virginia's governor threatening to sue and everything, they are praying they can win this game.
Dude, it's so funny, Willis, this whole thing. Also, West Virginia should probably go ahead and sue Bloomington, Indiana while they're at it for stealing their basketball coach now too. But yeah, I mean, good grief. This whole thing, I honestly, Willis, I had given up. I thought the Tar Heels, like, I didn't think they were going to get in, right? It was just like, I was preparing, like, I thought Monday's show for me was going to be a transfer portal show about offseason stuff. And here we are instead. I'm having to preview Carolina taking on San Diego State instead. And we're trying to figure out what this might look like. But it's one of those things that I'm with you where my thought was, don't let Carolina get in because they've won 8 out of 10. The only 2 losses are to the number 1 team in the nation and nearly beat them in the ACC semis. And so it's this weird thing where Carolina now is playing very good basketball, but comes up against an Ole Miss team that it's an interesting matchup, which I know we'll talk later.
Yeah, and if you look at this, in these play-in games, traditionally, the teams that play on Tuesday play on Thursday. The teams that play on Wednesday play on Friday. North Carolina, for whatever reason, got to play on Tuesday and is getting an extra day of rest, adding to the conspiracy, man.
Yes. And check this out. Like geographically, they played obviously in Dayton because that's where the play-in games already are. As you well know, this game is going to be played in Milwaukee, which is just like a 6-hour drive from Dayton, or, an hour or 2 flight. And so Carolina has that extra time. They've got a short trip. It's not like, a lot of times it's like we played in Dayton and you got to fly to Seattle or something crazy like that. Right. And on top of all that, North Carolina, because of how easy they had things against San Diego State, nobody played 30 minutes or more, right? Every Tar Heel played under 30 minutes and the starters came out with 7 minutes to go. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And they have the backing of essentially the whole country. If you are not an SEC fan, you are backing North Carolina in this game. I think the NCAA is probably backing Ole Miss in this game. Ole Miss is the rare 6-seed underdog in an NCAA tournament game. North Carolina's favorite in this game. Now, is this recency bias of what they did to San Diego State? Because San Diego State did not look ready to play in that game. They kind of got overwhelmed. But I think, is this recency bias?
I mean, there might be something to that for sure. And I mean, obviously, it's the FanDuel line opened at 1.5. So it's like, one made basket swings it one way or the other here with this thing. But yeah, I mean, there could very well be some recency bias to it. As Carolina, as we were just saying, comes in, having won 9 of 11, and Ole Miss, what is it, like 3-3 in the last 6? 3-4 in the last 7, if I'm remembering well. So yeah, there might be some how they perceive both teams to be playing lately.
Yeah, and remember with Ole Miss also, they did beat Tennessee this month.
Right. And the SEC versus the ACC is very different.
Yeah. It's really interesting because whenever I was looking at a correlation between the 2 schools and the 2 teams and everything, the Louisville game pops up. Ole Miss beat Louisville in their barn by 25 points earlier in the season. Ole Miss beat Alabama. That's pretty close to all of the crossover between the 2 teams. And I do not think these teams have ever played basketball before.
You know what? I hadn't even taken the time to look it up yet, Steven, but I can do it as we're talking. But yeah, I off the top of my head, I can't remember a previous matchup between the 2 teams either. Yeah.
Listen, everybody knows that Ole Miss is a football school and basketball is a secondary thing. And this is the 10th time all time that Ole Miss basketball has made the NCAA tournament. So I was rooting for North Carolina hard Tuesday night. I wanted the jersey. I don't care how the game goes. I wanted to see the jersey matchup on the court. I just wish that Ole Miss would wear their throwbacks in that game. Their throwbacks would be fantastic, but I doubt that they will. As an Ole Miss fan and all of the Ole Miss fans, they're excited to play a game against North Carolina in the NCAA tournament because this is a signal of a rival. It doesn't matter that Carolina's an 11 seed and all of the controversy. It's the name on the jersey that Chris Beard, what he has done in Oxford, it is meaningful. And this is something that Ole Miss fans can latch on to that, hey, we are close to kind of getting to that corner.
Yeah. And look, Chris Beard, for those who are unaware, not only do I host Locked on Tar Heels, I also co-host Locked on College Basketball. And we routinely and regularly talk about Chris Beard as one of the very best basketball coaches in the land. And we're talking X's and O's, we're talking recruiting, all of it. Chris Beard can do it all. He's done it every stop he's been at. Texas, Texas Tech, Ole Miss now. It's phenomenal. If the Rebs can hang on to Chris Beard, I think there is you think about like what Bama has done, stepping up from being just known as football to like a dominant basketball program. There is a very real world, Steven Willis, in which that could be the reality for Ole Miss going forward. And we've seen it with the recent trajectory of winning, 20 plus games these past couple seasons. Like that is a very real thing. And so I'm with you. I love the opportunity for both these teams to challenge each other in this way. And by the way, I got the record book pulled up while you were talking there. Ole Miss and Carolina have played twice in the past, splitting those games. Steven Willis, any guesses as to when those two previous games were played?
I'm going to say 1937 and 1948.
My man, you're not that far off, but you got to go even further back. 1923, February 28th, and then March 1st of 1926. The scores were Ole Miss 34, Carolina 32, and then Carolina 38, Ole Miss 23.
So this will be the first game in the history of Ole Miss versus Carolina to where one of the teams scores more than 40 points.
That's
because
exactly.
I'm willing to bet that both the teams are going to score more than 40 points.
In the first half, maybe, for crying out loud. And it's the first, I mean, that was literally a century ago. This is crazy.
So thanks again for checking out the Locked On Tar Heels and the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Isaac Shade, Steven Willis. When we come back, we will start to get into the nuts and bolts of this game that has a chance to be one of the all-timers in NCAA tournament history. So stick around. Ever check out your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place just to stop managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch a couple weeks ago, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery, and now I budget smarter and save a whole bunch more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, I can use Monarch to check my finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with my partner is also smoother than ever. I can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for $50 off your first year. That's Monarch Money. Code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for half off your first year. Imagine watching your favorite team live. Maybe if you were in Milwaukee, getting ready to watch the Ole Miss game against North Carolina, feeling the energy of the crowd and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. Getting tickets to that game should not be stressful. That's where GameTime comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. Curation on the GameTime Picks app makes it easy as well to find better tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. I just checked the GameTime app, and there's amazing deals all over the NCAA tournament coming up. With a seat view before you buy, no surprise fees, and the lowest price guarantee, you can book with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we are back, crossing over, Locked On Tar Heels, Locked On Ole Miss, Isaac Shade. Let's get into the actual game itself, because I do think this has a chance to be one of those all-timer type games. When you have two teams that have the perceived disrespect going into it, you're going to see two teams that are playing very hard. Listen, a couple of days ago, Chris Beard was asked about the famous fraud of the NCAA tournament code that came out. The man was visibly upset at that point. He couldn't answer another question going on. He was going to no comment and do the classic thing. He's like, wait a second, we got to talk about this. And that lets me know that he probably went back to the facility, put that quote in every locker, on every TV, and they're going to this game as an underdog. He is going to play the underdog role in this game, going against the North Carolina team that got to hear all week that they just didn't belong in the tournament. And Hubert Davis did the same thing. This has a chance to be be an all-timer. And as an Ole Miss fan, that makes me a little nervous because our only NCAA tournament all-timer was Bryce Drew.
Oh, Steven, I hate to have to say this. That is one of my first memories of the NCAA tournament, was that shot. I mean, I hate that y'all were on the wrong side of it, but good grief, what a play. You know what's funny? While Carolina is the 1.5 point favorite at FanDuel, if you look at Ken Palm, Ken Palm's algorithm actually has Ole Miss as a 1 point favorite, projected to win the game 78-77. And so, I mean, to me, I love how you're putting it there as a potential all-timer, because I think the markets, it's going to be a basic toss-up. And so that's why it's going to come down to all of these matchups, as you were saying, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of. And I love that. This should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we were talking off air before we started the program, and Ole Miss has lost nearly every game they played. Whenever they got beat, it was to a front court dominated team. Mississippi State, a bunch of athletes. They could overwhelm you with size. Auburn, Janai Broom, enough said there. Teams like that have given Ole Miss fits all season. And when Ole Miss ran across them, most of the time they weren't able to overcome them. But when they played guard-dominant teams like Alabama, Ole Miss has found a way to win those games. They found a way to D up Matthew Murrell and Sean Padula on the big-name guards. I think the guard matchup in this tournament, in this game, is going to be absolutely fantastic, and it's going to determine everything.
I'm right with you, Willis. Like, for Carolina, I mean, that's been the storyline all season. For those who might not have seen it, Armando Bacot, obviously, who played at Carolina for 5 years, one of the greatest players in Carolina history, left Carolina, tried and failed to land. I think it was about 89 different front court players, Willis, and just struck out on every one of them. And so Carolina's really had to kind of figure things out. The main dominant front court player right now, Ole Miss fans will be familiar with, because it's Vanderbilt transfer Van Allen Lubin, who is undersized, just like Ole Miss. That's what's going to be interesting. This is going to be a below the rim kind of game in a lot of those ways, outside of some of these athletes just going off, right? But Van Allen Lubin has kind of found himself lately. He and Carolina's point guard Elliot Cadeau have a really strong connection. He's had double-digit scoring in 10 straight games and double-doubles in 4 of the last 6. And so that is a step in the right direction. But Carolina truly is a guard-dominant team, to your point. It will be Elliot Cadeau running the point, undersized at 6'1". RJ Davis, the second leading scorer in Carolina history, is 6'0". You'll have Seth Trimble coming off the bench, who's 6'3", but he's the best individual defender. But Willis, what has switched things for Carolina is that Coach Davis moved freshman Drake Powell into the starting lineup at small forward to give Carolina more size at 6'6", 6'7". And that's when things really changed for Carolina down the stretch. And so we'll see if that, I'm curious if he would put him on Padula, for example. I think that could be an interesting tweak to help things for the Tar Heels.
Yeah, and it would, with Ole Miss in their guard lineup, because they shoot the ball really well. They did not in the SEC tournament, so that is going to be a storyline to watch. Sean Padula did not have a good SEC tournament aside from one buzzer beater shot. If you can have Juju Murray, if you can have Matthew Murrell, if he's hitting his shots from the outside, Ole Miss becomes an infinitely much tougher team to defend.
Yes.
And Malik Dia, who is also a former Vanderbilt big man, matching up against somebody he's probably familiar with, has a chance to go against North Carolina and assert himself, because he is the one Ole Miss player that can play bully ball. Yeah. He is the Ole Miss player that can bang. And whenever he gets going against Alabama, he had a 20-20 game, for instance. So whenever he gets going, he can really get going. But I tell you, the guy that I am really looking forward to seeing in this ball game is Dre Davis. Dre Davis is a 6'7", 6'8" guy that can just match up and D you up. He is somebody that I could see with Ole Miss switching. They're going to want him in the game a lot for RJ Davis, for the three-point shooters, because of his length on the outside. And if that happens, Ole Miss offense rebounds better with Dre Davis in the game. Their defense becomes very good, and whenever they're on, they are really on. So if Ole Miss is making shots and keeps North Carolina out of transition, because that is key, keep North Carolina out of transition. If Ole Miss can make shots, set up their little three-court press, make North Carolina go up against a set defense, which is Chris Beard's wheelhouse, Ole Miss matches up pretty well in this game.
And to that point, Steven, throughout RJ Davis's career, when he struggled is when a team will use a bigger, longer defender on him to cause issues because of his lack of size. And so if it is, for example, Dre Davis with the main defensive assignment on RJ, that would cause problems for him. Now, I'm really curious because, with Juju Murray, with Sean Padula both being undersized like Carolina's backcourt, these matchup decisions the coaches make, I think could have a huge factor in this game. Obviously, Carolina very familiar with Padula's game from his time and years at Virginia Tech and how much of a killer he is. Willis, let me ask you this, because this is something I've been wondering about and thinking about a lot. Ole Miss has 6 players averaging double digits in scoring, including Jamin Brakefield coming off the bench, obviously the former Duke player there who Carolina, again, is very familiar with. How are the Rebs able to do this? Get all that offense spread around so well?
Well, the main thing is they don't have a Batman. They don't have an RJ Davis, and they need somebody to step up seemingly every night. And the defense, other teams game plan, other teams scout as well. And so they might decide, okay, Dre Davis is not going to beat us tonight, or Jamin Brakefield is not going to beat us tonight. The difference is Ole Miss has the outside shooters. Like Matthew Murrell, before he injured his knee, was the best player on that team.
Sure,
and even now, he's probably the 4th or the 5th. And he's probably going to be what you talked about earlier, assigned with guarding RJ Davis in the game at 6'4", 6'5". And he's been guarding the best player in the SEC teams, every team that's come in, that's been the Matthew Murrell assignment. So with there being no Batman, it's just kind of unselfish. Like Davin Barnes, for instance, he's 1,000-point scorer at UTSA. He comes in, gets 2-3 points a night, plays a little defense. He's another one that has scored a ton in his career. Chris Beard just has these guys completely bought in, but make no mistake, it is led by Jamin Brakefield and Matthew Murrell. They kind of stir the strength when it comes to this Ole Miss basketball team.
What I'm really excited for is it feels like both teams have really found their rotation, settling in on about those 8 guys that you really want to rely on specifically as we get into postseason play here. And so I think that'll be an interesting dynamic as well. Willis, something that Carolina has really hit on lately that I'm curious your thoughts on is things have really changed as the Tar Heels have been able to start making their own 3-pointers from outside. Ahead of this 11-game stretch where Carolina has won 9 games, they went into it shooting 32.3% as a team from beyond the arc. As of the stats following the San Diego State game on Tuesday night, Carolina as a team in that 11-game stretch has jumped all the way to 36% as a team. How has Ole Miss typically done this year, especially because of that guard-oriented lineup at being able to shut down the opposition's 3-point attack?
The defense is pretty good against the 3-point shot at the top of the key and in the wings. The problem that they have is whenever a player like the North Carolina point guard is able to get into the lane, and that no middle defense, the weakness in that defense is the corner 3. That is the open shot. And if you can hit that, Ole Miss could be in a little bit of trouble.
Interesting.
But teams tend to start with that and they kind of fall out of favor. If you look at the Tennessee game, Zakai Ziegler set that up, and Tennessee in the first half was nailing that all the way through. They had a 7-8 point lead at halftime, but in the second half, it started not falling. And all of a sudden, Ole Miss was able to chip away. And with this Ole Miss team, you're not going to be able to pull away from them generally. You might get it to 7. You're not going to get it to 15 generally. Sometimes it will happen, but even Auburn was unable to do that in the SEC tournament. Ole Miss wasn't shooting well. They weren't shooting well at all. Honestly, they didn't play particularly well offensively in that game, but Auburn just couldn't pull away because they couldn't hit the outside, that corner 3-point shot that is so critical to teams playing against Ole Miss. If North Carolina can hit that shot, it's going to be problematic. And I can assume they're going to take RJ Davis and put him in the corner quite a bit in the game plan. But if Ole Miss can survive that, and if it's a tight game at halftime and everything, Chris Beard's a master at halftime adjustment.
He is, absolutely.
In the second half, he is going to figure out exactly what you want to do and take that away. So Hubert Davis better have basically a plan B ready to go for when that happens.
That'll be really interesting. Yeah, I mean, to that point, Jalen Withers, who a Louisville transfer who's in year 2 at Carolina, has not done a ton this season, and then he's been part of this resurgence, and part of where he's really made a living is the corner threes. So that could be a critical X factor in this game for sure.
Thanks again for checking out this crossover, Locked On Tar Heels and Locked On Ole Miss. When we come back, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of everything. We're going to tell you what we think and who's going to win the ball game. Stick around. You know, daylight savings snuck up on us again. And if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-hour energy has got your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up watching the NCAA tournament, squeezing in a round of golf after work, and just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5-hour energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. I've been staying up late watching all of the tournament action like most of the country, and 5-hour energy helps me keep up the next day. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12 or 24 pack delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5-hour energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
We are back. Locked On crossover, Locked On Tar Heels, Locked On Ole Miss. Isaac Shade, Steven Willis joining you. Now it's time for the nuts and bolts, Isaac. How is this game going to go? I know how you think this game's going to go because I saw your bracket on Bracket Breakdown, which means I know exactly what you think is going to happen. But give me an example of why you think North Carolina is going to win the game. How do they win the game?
It starts with Elliot Cadeau. Elliot Cadeau is North Carolina's point guard who, I just got to be very fair and honest, has had some struggles this year. He gets into trouble when he'll commit like over half of Carolina's games this year. He's committed 2 first half fouls and had to sit out a vast majority of the first half. And or he'll have games where he's committing 3 or more turnovers. In the last 6 games, Elliot Cadeau has 3 double-figure assist games. His assist to turnover ratio in that span is 3.58 to 1. And also he's scoring well and has hit. He's not known as a shooter, but he's 6 of 8 from 3 in the last 5 games. When Carolina gets that version of Elliot Cadeau, who's dishing, who's scoring from outside and in, it just changes the ceiling for this Tar Heels team. There are a whole multitude of other factors in this game. Like everyone looks at Carolina's offense from the San Diego State game. That was all predicated on the defense, turning that into those fast break points you were talking about earlier, where Carolina led that metric 18-9. But for me, it all starts with Elliot Cadeau having a strong game. And that's going to, a lot of that tone will be set in the first half. So watch for Elliot Cadeau. Does he pick up 2 first half fouls? And how many turnovers does he have early? That could be key. What about for you?
I think it's going to be Ole Miss taking care of the ball and points in the paint. Ole Miss against Kentucky, they had 1 turnover for the entire game. This is a team that does not turn the ball over. Whenever they play well, they win. And normally that is how they basically compensate for not being the best rebounding team. They might get beat by 10 rebounds on the board, but their turnover margin, they win that by 7 or 8. And that is because Ole Miss just doesn't turn the ball over and they turn you over. So that is probably a matchup to pay attention, the UNC point guard versus the Ole Miss defense, either Juju Murray or Sean Padula. So you have that in the points in the paint. They can get a little bit over-reliant on the three-point shot. Malik Dia can drift outside the arc and just fall in love with the three-point shot to where they play their 5-out type stuff and all of that. If Ole Miss can attack the glass, and they should, in the lane, they're going to get open shots with Juju Murray, Sean Padula, and Matthew Murrell, but also with Malik Dia and Dre Davis going in there and crashing. I think they have a little bit of an advantage there, and that is just weird to think of whenever you're talking about an Ole Miss front court. So as long as Ole Miss doesn't turn the ball over, they play a clean basketball. I'm not asking for Kentucky, but let's just take the turnovers at 6. Let's just, if that's a bad game for Ole Miss this year, by the way, 6 turnovers. If you can do that, dominate in the lane, keep the rebounding margin fairly similar, and shoot fairly well to force UNC to actually work the ball up against a set defense, I think Ole Miss might win this by 6 to 10 games. 16 points.
Yeah. I was tracking. It suddenly turned into a series that they're playing. Yeah. I mean, Willis, to your point, this team, Ole Miss, is third in the nation in turnover percentage at just 12.8%. The only teams that are ahead of them is teams nobody's ever heard of, North Alabama and South Dakota. So to that point, Carolina has got to take care of the ball very well themselves. And I love your assessment of everything there. What Carolina has really thrived on lately is making the three-point shot. Against San Diego State, they hit 14 of them, which was a Carolina all-time NCAA tournament record, and they did so while making more than 50% of those threes. That's what it's got to be for Carolina. Coach Davis always talks about getting into the paint by pass or penetration and then either finishing, getting fouled, or kicking out. The problem, as you talked about, is Chris Beard's no middles defense. Who wins that strength on strength battle is key. If North Carolina can hit their threes, open up the paint a little bit, and then find some driving lanes, that might change things. If they can't, could be a long day for the Tar Heels. Look, as we've talked about with the line, this is ultimately a toss-up. I think it is a tight game. Give me the Tar Heels by 5. I'll go 79-74.
I'm going to go 68-64, 68-63 Ole Miss.
I like it. Mm-hmm. I like it.
Yeah. Should be pretty fantastic. And tell everybody real quick that just might be watching this podcast what you have going on down in Dallas with the Bracket Breakdown Show.
Yes, for sure. As I mentioned earlier, I'm the co-host of Locked On College Basketball, along with Andy Patton, who hosts Locked On Gonzaga. And we have been given the opportunity to go down Locked On, our great network that Locked On Ole Miss and Locked On Tar Heels are part of, has partnered with Amazon Fire TV channels to do this thing called Bracket Breakdown, where each weekend we're filming shows in studio, recapping the previous week of the tournament and looking ahead to the next weekend. We're joined by former NBA player Gordon Hayward. We're joined by current WNBA player Monique Billings, Kylan Mills, who's one of our great hosts at Locked On, but also works for the Big Ten Network as a great studio host. She's leading the way. And we've got Tanitra Batiste, who's part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. It's a great team. And Locked On folks, you would be so proud of the great work they're doing. So if you want to hear more about it, you can check it all out on any Amazon-enabled device.
Yeah, and if you want to see me on there, Ole Miss needs to win against North Carolina. Just the way that's going to work out. Anyway,
yeah. And whoever wins this thing is probably going to be going up against an Iowa State team that is going to be shorthanded. So Willis, great opportunity for either the Rebels or the Tar Heels to advance to the Sweet 16, if we're being honest here.
If we're going to be really honest about it, and I said this on the SEC Squad show last night, the winner of this game is probably going to the Elite Eight to play Auburn.
Ooh.
I'm dead serious.
Mm-hmm. Let's from your mouth to God's ears, my man.
Yeah. And good luck to everybody, and good luck to you in your travels down to Dallas and all that. Isaac Shade from Locked On Tar Heels, Steven Willis from Locked On Ole Miss. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you later, buddy.
Thanks, Steven. Appreciate you, buddy. Good luck.
Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on being the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we are the #1 Ole Miss podcast out there. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On College Basketball podcast with Isaac Shade, who you just saw, and Andy Patton. March is here, so be the most informed college basketball fan throughout the madness. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hotty toddy, everybody. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.